Great to see you, Blake. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
It's always a delight to see you. You certainly had an interesting season. You had a knee injury, and then, of course, the pandemic happened. How are you doing now?
I'm good now. I've had a lot of time off. Just kind of doing the same thing every single day, waiting for the next season to start back up again. So
What's the
it's been a little
most
boring, but it's nice.
What's the most boring thing that you've done to pass the time that people would be surprised to know Blake Griffin does?
I mean, I don't know if it's the most boring thing, but I have played at least over 400 games of Monopoly Deal, the card game. Um,
That sounds pretty
so
boring.
yeah, it is. It gets a little interesting, when you have the rivalry. I got three buddies that I play with, so to us, it's a little bit more interesting. But yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
Unfortunately, the Pistons did not make it into the bubble, but I imagine time for the players in the bubble has been an interesting experience. Have you talked to any of your fellow players, and what has their reports back to you been as far as how it's been for them in there?
I have. I think the consensus is that the first 10 days maybe was okay, and then it got a little bit boring, and then it got a lot more boring, and then it got a little dreadful. But the best thing I heard was like when the game started, obviously there's no fans, and they pump in crowd noise, and it's all screens around. One of my buddies was like, it feels like playing basketball inside of a Black Mirror episode. So, they're doing it.
Of course, on top of everything else that happened this year, we had the sort of upheaval about racial justice, and it seemed like the NBA was at the forefront of that, up to and including the boycott that happened, I guess, a few weeks ago now. How do you feel like the NBA, particularly the players, have responded to this unique moment we're living through?
I thought they've done an unbelievable job. I mean, I'm obviously very biased, but I'm proud to be sort of a part of that fraternity of guys that have chosen to use their voice to speak out for people that may not have a voice. And I think the NBPA and the NBA all did a great job of coming together and saying, hey, look, this is important. We're going to play basketball, but we want these guys to be able to express themselves and stand up for what they believe in. And it's fun not only to watch basketball and everybody to stay safe, but also to be able to stand for something.
We first met in 2012 when you did something on the ESPYs that I hosted. I, at that point, was unaware of exactly how comedy talented you were. Now I think the secret's out, obviously, over the last almost 10 years. But was comedy something that was always an interest of yours, even, before recent history?
Yeah, I mean, I just always loved comedy. I watched comedy shows as a kid with my dad, and I sort of like middle school and high school was like sort of the Comedy Central era, I guess, where I was just watching everything on Comedy Central. I watched SNL, growing up. So I've always had an interest, and then, I just have had the opportunity to do fun stuff like the ESPY skit that we did. And those are the things that I really like enjoy doing. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Would people on sort of your high school and college basketball teams, would they have said that Blake Griffin is the funny one?
I guess it depends on which guys. I definitely.
It always depends on which guys.
Yeah, exactly. I would definitely, I was always trying to make friends laugh and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. So I think some people may find me funny, but I'm sure there's a lot that don't.
We have a friend in common, Neil Brennan, who also met you during that ESPY shoot, and he's a stand-up comedian, and you've done some stand-up comedy, you've hosted some roasts. Is this something that you still do?
Yes, Neil has been great to me. He's sort of my comedy mentor, sort of took me under his wing and let me see how it really works. But I do host a comedy or a stand-up charity event every year. Wasn't able to do it this year, obviously, but I've done some stuff for that. Neil's done that show. So nothing right now, but yeah, I have gone on stage. It's absolutely terrifying, but it's always fun.
I think it's nice for people to hear that you are also terrified by it, because too many people think it's unique to them that they're scared of getting on stage. But so thank you for sharing that and letting them know that it is for all people.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So your podcast, the Pursuit of Healthiness, what made you do this podcast about this area?
I've always been interested in health and wellness. My mom was very into health and nutrition, and my brother and I were like the weird kids when friends would come spend the night. We had like the healthy cereals, and we had to like take our vitamins in the morning, and I don't think people really wanted to spend the night. So I think that kind of got me started in the health and wellness world. And then, in college, I was a health and exercise science major and got approached to do some podcasts here and there. And I really wanted to do this because I wanted to be able to talk to people who are leading, their respective verticals in the health and wellness community. And it's been awesome to hear their stories and to learn. And, if you can walk away taking one thing and adding it to your life that benefits, your health mentally or physically, then I'm happy about it.
You've talked to some really interesting people, Chelsea Handler, Carly Kloss, Ariana Huffington, who you guys talked about the idea of like a good night's sleep. And she was on this show, and we also talked about it. And what she told me has really stayed with me as much as anyone who's ever been here has said.
Yeah, she was unbelievable. I mean, not only just sleep, but also just the importance of like rest too, mental rest. But one thing I loved that she told me was like, you have to have like a sleep routine to get to the place where, you can finally go to sleep. And that's something I've sort of tried to implement, especially during this quarantine COVID time. Just because my schedule's been set, we haven't been flying all over the place playing games, and I've been able to do that, and I've definitely seen a difference. So I really, really enjoyed my conversation with her and everybody else.
I want to ask before you go about The Last Dance. I think for everyone, it was exactly what we needed when it came out, because we were absent of sports. But you were a little disappointed because The Last Dance robbed you of something.
Yeah, I've been a Jordan athlete for almost 8 years now, and gotten to spend some time around him. And whenever he tells stories, you're always really locked in. He's a great storyteller, and he told us the story about Dennis Rodman going to needing a vacation in the middle of the season and going to Vegas. And for so long, that was like my go-to. Like, people were like, "What's Jordan like?" I'm like, "Oh, I got something cool. Here's this story." And I would just give him this Dennis Rodman story. And then as he started to tell this story, like during the Last Dance, I was just like, I don't have like that cool story anymore. My go-to story where I had everything keyed up. So now I gotta think of something else.
Yeah, now you're just a dope like the rest of us who saw a documentary.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey Blake, it's always a pleasure to see you. Congrats on the podcast, and best of luck next season.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, I'll see you soon. Blake Griffin, everybody. The Pursuit of Healthiness is available on Audible.